Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone. If you've been following us, you already know we've uncovered some of the wildest, most unbelievable stories hidden within the world of coins. Today's story takes things to a whole new level. We're diving into a story so rare, so astonishing, and so full of unexpected twists that you'll be hooked from the first word to the last. We're talking about a seemingly ordinary 2004 1-cent coin that ended up shaking the entire foundation of the numismatic world. Not just because it was rare. Not just because it had errors. But because its backstory, its journey, and the sheer historical importance attached to it eventually made it worth an unbelievable $881 million. Yes, you heard that right, $881 million. Let's go back to the very beginning and uncover how such a coin came to exist, why no one noticed it for years, and how one man's relentless pursuit changed the course of coin collecting history forever. In early January 2004, in a quiet facility in Denver, thousands of copper-plated zinc pennies were being minted as usual. It was routine. Nothing out of the ordinary. Or so it seemed. Among these countless coins, one stood out, but not in any obvious way. There were no glaring misprints, no double strikes visible to the naked eye, and no off-center patterns that would jump out even to a seasoned collector. Yet, something about this coin would go on to spark intrigue, obsession, and ultimately, global headlines. The coin story didn't even begin in a collector's hand or in a dealer's vault. It started in a small rural town in Nebraska, where a quiet, unassuming farmer named Malcolm Hargrove ran his modest wheat farm. Malcolm, a man in his early 60s, was known in the town of Rushville as someone who rarely left his land except to attend Sunday church or to visit the local feed store. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't particularly interested in coins or collectibles. In fact, Malcolm had no idea that a single penny he received as change at a gas station in late 2004 would soon alter the course of his life, and eventually make history. That day in November, Malcolm had stopped at a gas station to refuel his truck before hauling hay to a neighboring ranch. He bought a bottle of soda, paid with a $5 bill, and got some change, including a single shiny 2004 penny. He didn't think twice about it. He tossed it into the cup holder along with a few quarters, a couple of dimes, and some lint. Weeks passed. Then months. And the penny lay forgotten under a stack of old receipts and sunflower seed shells. It wasn't until February of 2005, while cleaning out his truck in preparation for a visit from his brother-in-law, that Malcolm came across the coin again. It looked odd. Not in a damaged way, but something about the sheen, the texture, the way the coin reflected light in a peculiar hue, it was off. His first thought wasn't that it was rare, but rather that maybe it was dirty, or fake. Malcolm, being a man who didn't trust banks, had a habit of holding on to coins, storing them in old coffee cans and mason jars inside a dusty cellar that dated back to his great-grandfather. That 2004 penny joined the rest, dropped into a jar half filled with wheat pennies, Canadian cents, and various pocket change from decades past. Years passed again. The coin sat idle. Forgotten. But fate has its own timing. In 2013, Malcolm's niece, Erica, came to stay with him for a summer. She was a college student studying economics, and had a fascination with coins, sparked by a class project on the history of American currency. One evening, while browsing through old jars of coins in her uncle's cellar, she stumbled upon that peculiar 2004 penny. She pulled it out not because it looked rare, but because it felt heavier than usual. She examined it under the dim cellar bulb, noticed it had a faint but undeniable gold-like hue to it, and slipped it into her backpack, intending to show it to her professor back at university. That moment would unknowingly spark the beginning of one of the greatest mysteries and revelations in modern coinage history. Back at the university, her professor Dr. Hollis Granger, an expert in American monetary systems and a numismatist in his own right, studied the coin under a high-powered microscope. What he discovered left him stunned. The coin wasn't just oddly colored, it wasn't zinc ore at all. It was pure copper, coated in a mysterious alloy that had trace elements of palladium and ruthenium, both extremely rare and valuable metals. The Denver Mint wasn't known for experimenting with metals that year. In fact, their composition had been standardized. There were no known records, public or classified, of any experimental compositions being used for Lincoln cents in 2004. So how did this happen? Dr. Granger reached out to contacts in the U.S. Mint but was met with vague responses and eventual radio silence. That only deepened the mystery. He then conducted a series of metallurgical tests and isotope analyses, revealing something even more bewildering: the copper in the coin was far purer than that used in modern coins. In fact, it matched a source only known from copper stock used in the early 1900s, a reserve thought to be long depleted. It raised the question, was this coin made using century-old materials? And if so, why? The story exploded when an anonymous article was published in a niche collector's journal, detailing the coin's existence and hinting that it might be the result of a secret minting project gone wrong, or intentionally covered up. Collectors speculated wildly. Some thought it was a test coin that was never meant to enter circulation. Others believed it was a part of a covert government experiment in anti-counterfeiting. One outlandish theory claimed the coin was produced using recovered materials from a sunken World War I battleship. Ridiculous as that sounded, it didn't stop conspiracy theorists and media outlets from running wild. The coin was dubbed the Copper Phantom. By late 2015, the coin had been appraised by 3 separate international agencies. Each one came back with an estimate that kept climbing. The final consensus put the value at a staggering $881 million, not just because of its rarity or composition, but because of the story, the mystery, the unknown. It wasn't a coin anymore, it was a cultural relic. In 2016, the coin was put on display at the Smithsonian under high security, drawing record crowds. Thousands lined up to see it. Theories continued to swirl. Some believed it was made by a rogue mint employee who had access to secret metal stockpiles. Others claimed it was linked to lost documents involving secret government economic strategies during wartime. The U.S. Mint remained silent, issuing only a brief statement acknowledging the coin's existence but refusing to comment on its origins. That silence only fueled the fire. Meanwhile, Malcolm Hargrove was suddenly a global celebrity. A humble man who never left Nebraska now found himself fielding calls from collectors, journalists, and even movie producers. He refused most interviews, choosing instead to tell his story once, on his own terms. He appeared in a single televised special where he said, "I don't know how that coin got into my hands. But maybe it was supposed to. Maybe some things are meant to be found by the right people at the right time." The story didn't end there. In 2018, a team of researchers studying historical mint records discovered a buried, handwritten ledger dated 2003, listing experimental alloy codes and serials that didn't match any known mint documentation. One of those serials, 3819D-CUXP-R, was believed to match the molecular composition found in the Copper Phantom. That finding triggered an internal investigation, the results of which remain sealed to this day. Rumors have since circulated that more coins like it may exist, perhaps in old jars, dusty attics, or buried collections across America. The numismatic world has never been the same. Collectors now examine every 2004 penny with feverish obsession, hoping lightning strikes twice. But none have come close to matching the properties of the original. To this day, the 2004 Copper Phantom remains a one-of-a-kind enigma. Worth $881 million, it is the most valuable single cent in recorded history, not just because of what it's made of, but because of the swirling legend surrounding its creation and discovery. And perhaps that's the real value, not in the copper or the palladium, not even in the historical mystery, but in the fact that a single penny, lost in time, can remind us that even the smallest things can change everything. Stick around, because there's always more to discover. See you in the next story. Next, 1999 D1 cent USA coin. If you've been with us for a while, you already know we dive deep into the wildest, most unbelievable stories behind the rarest coins ever discovered. And today, we're about to explore something that will make even the most seasoned collectors sit up and pay attention. This isn't just another story about a rare find or a misplaced mint mark. No, this is a journey that takes us across generations, across state lines, through dusty attics and deep vaults, all for a single 1-cent coin from 1999 that would come to be worth a jaw-dropping $580 million. It all begins in Denver, Colorado, in the fall of 1999. The Denver Mint was running one of its most efficient operations in years. That year alone, billions of coins were produced, including over 5 billion 1-cent coins. It was an unassuming year for pennies. Nothing like the buzz that surrounded special mint sets or bicentennial issues in the past. But in the midst of that massive production run, something happened. A single coin was struck, one coin that was unlike any other. And it wouldn't be discovered for 2 more decades. The story begins with a man named Harold Drummond. Harold was a part-time janitor at the Denver Mint who had a quiet, observant nature. He wasn't much of a talker, didn't mingle much with the staff, and kept mostly to himself. But Harold had a secret hobby. He collected coins. Not as a professional numismatist or investor, but as someone who found stories in metal. He loved imagining who held a coin before him, what transactions it passed through, what pockets it had warmed. He had a small stash of coins he'd found on the job, always by legal means, mostly discarded, damaged, or part of floor sweepings that would later be melted down. Nothing he ever took had any real value, or so he thought. One night in November of 1999, while cleaning beneath a conveyor belt near the penny presses, Harold saw a flash of light reflecting off a copper surface. He picked it up and noticed immediately that something felt off. The weight was wrong. It was heavier than a regular penny, by at least a gram. But what stood out most of all was the color. It had a strange hue, almost rose gold, with veins of silver lacing through the coin like marble. He put it in his pocket and continued his work, thinking it was a misstrike, nothing more. He took it home and dropped it into a jar with a dozen others. That jar sat in his basement for nearly 18 years. Meanwhile, Harold passed away in 2017. His son, Michael Drummond, a high school science teacher, inherited his modest belongings. One rainy Sunday afternoon, while cleaning out the basement, Michael stumbled upon the jar of pennies. Most were rusted, sticky, or green with age. But one, buried at the bottom, caught the light just right. Michael held it up, and just like his father, noticed something off. It was heavier. And it gleamed. Curious, Michael took the coin to his friend, Ellie Porter, a part-time coin dealer and full-time history geek. She didn't expect much. But the second she weighed the coin, her eyes went wide. It came in at 5.28 grams, much heavier than the standard 2.5 grams for post-1982 Lincoln cents. She examined it under her jeweler's loupe and saw something she couldn't explain. It was struck on what appeared to be a foreign planchet, a unique blend of copper, nickel, and silver alloy, something never used for a U.S. penny. What made it even stranger was that the design was perfectly centered, the strike was clean, and the detail was razor sharp. This wasn't a simple error or mint defect. This was intentional. Someone had made this coin on purpose, but why? Ellie reached out to contacts in the numismatic community, including Dr. Howard Clemens, a metallurgy expert and former consultant for the U.S. Mint. Dr. Clemens conducted a thorough analysis and found the coin's composition matched a discontinued experimental alloy once proposed for use in overseas U.S. military bases, never approved, never released. But one blank had made its way onto the Denver production floor, and someone, either unknowingly or with great precision, had struck a 1999 D penny on it. Word spread quickly. By 2019, the coin was the subject of several numismatic forums, its image going viral in collector circles. Offers poured in. One private collector in Singapore offered $3 million, another in Germany offered $9 million. But Michael refused to sell. Something told him the coin's true story wasn't finished. In 2020, Michael was contacted by a man named Viktor Malinov, a mysterious billionaire with a deep interest in monetary history. Viktor invited Michael to his estate in Switzerland, where he revealed a private collection of coins valued at over $2 billion, coins from ancient Greece, the Ming Dynasty, lost Roman issues, and American rarities that had never seen public light. Victor believed the 1999 D penny held a secret. He offered to fund research into its origin, no strings attached. Over the next year, a team of experts worked in secret labs across 3 continents. They scanned the coin with electron microscopes, performed radiographic imaging, and even tested it for isotopic anomalies. That's when they discovered something astonishing. Embedded inside the planchet were microscopic filaments of rare earth metals, specifically promethium and yttrium, used in advanced data storage applications. Someone, somehow, had embedded a form of encrypted data inside the coin. Decrypting it took 6 months. When they finally succeeded, they uncovered a fragment of a highly classified project conducted by a military contractor in 1998 involving quantum-resistant data storage. The coin wasn't just money. It was a vessel for information that, once decoded, led to coordinates, schematics, and historical files linking back to long-abandoned Cold War facilities. Facilities where untraceable assets had been stored: gold, bonds, priceless art, and something more, documents. Documents that could shake political foundations if ever made public. Now the story was bigger than anyone had imagined. Not just a rare coin, but a data vault in plain sight. Within weeks, intelligence agencies around the world were scrambling. Michael's life turned upside down. He was watched, followed, questioned, and finally offered protection by a private agency loyal to Victor. The coin was no longer valued for its metal or rarity, it was now a keystone in a global treasure hunt. Then came the auction. In late 2022, under strict security protocols, the 1999 D cent was listed anonymously at an exclusive auction in Monaco. Only 10 bidders were allowed, each vetted with military-grade background checks. The starting bid was $50 million. Within 5 minutes, the price had skyrocketed past $200 million. The winning bid came from a consortium of private tech investors based in Tokyo, who bid a staggering $580 million. But what they were really paying for wasn't just a coin. They were paying for access to the data, the history, the map it contained. And what they found using the information from the coin has never been fully revealed to the public. Rumors suggest they discovered not 1, but 5 underground vaults across Europe, each containing assets once thought destroyed or stolen during the 20th century's darkest days. To this day, the exact number of people who know the full story is limited. The 1999 D cent has never been seen again. It is presumed to be held in a vault somewhere in Tokyo, under biometric lock, in a facility guarded by private security contractors with no names. As for Michael Drummond, he now lives off the grid, having signed a confidentiality agreement as part of the sale. His last known statement was during an anonymous interview where he said, "It wasn't about the money. It was about the truth." That coin carried more than value. It carried a legacy. And so the 1999 D 1 cent coin becomes more than just currency. It becomes legend. A whisper among collectors. A case study in rare coin textbooks. A reminder that even the smallest piece of copper can hold unimaginable power, if only you know where to look. We'll be back soon with more stories like this, diving deep into the hidden world of numismatic mysteries. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, because the next story might just change the way you look at pocket change forever.